Call the May 14 City Council meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. And I'll ask my colleagues on council to stand as Councilman Paul Battle leads us in an invocation, then followed by Councilman Bill Moody leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Bow our heads. Heavenly Father, will you please bless our city? Help us to be that beautiful structure on that hill that we so often talk about. Father, take care of our youth and our senior citizens. Bless all the citizens in our city and everybody on this planet, in this world. Bless those folk that make policy, myself and the members of the council. And above all, Lord, help us to do that is right so that our city may thrive. And having done that, I have no reservations about us being the greatest city in the Tidewater area. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. We'll now have an electronic roll call, and my colleagues on council, please indicate your presence by hitting the yes button. And Madam Clerk, we have a quorum, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Good. Our next item is the consideration of the adoption of minutes. And we have the minutes of a call meeting of April 22, 2019, the minutes of a call meeting of April 23, 2019, and the minutes of a regular meeting, April 23, 2019. We'll consider all these minutes together in one motion.
Move adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to our protocol for speakers. And Madam Clerk, would you read that protocol, please?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tonight, under the city manager's report, just about every item, in fact, every item pertains to the adoption of the city's operating budget, its capital improvements plan, its capital improvements budget, and all the other documents that need to be in place to implement the budget for the next fiscal year, 2019-2020. So we're at item 18-181, and would you read the caption for this item, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend and reenact ordinance number 2018-30 to improve and levy taxes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020 on real estate, tangible personal property, privately owned pleasure boats, privately owned camping trailers and motorhomes, and machinery and tools within the city of Portsmouth, Virginia, for the purpose of raising revenue for the support of governmental operations and the public free schools, and to pay principals and interest on the public debt.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Any discussion on item 19-181 on the motion to adopt? Any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to 19-181, which is the consideration of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, would you read that?
Yes, sir.
Ordinance, please.
An ordinance to amend and reordain Article 5 cigarette tax of Chapter 35 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, as amended taxation by amending Section 35-272 to increase the cigarette tax by 2.5 mils per cigarette.
So that we can consider this matter, is a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made to adopt this ordinance. Any discussion on this matter? Hearing none, ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, which is to adopt, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item C of 19-181, which is the consideration of an ordinance. And Madam Clerk, would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend and reordain Article 10 transient rental tax of Chapter 35 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, taxation by amending Sections 35-441 and 35-442 to increase the transient rental tax and delete an obsolete state code reference.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt? Is there, we have a motion that's been made and duly seconded, which is to adopt. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item D, which is consideration of the adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend Appendix A of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia to increase monthly stormwater utility fees as authorized by Section 31.2-26 of said code.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt.
Move for adoption.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. And Madam Clerk, this brings us to item E, which is a consideration of another ordinance. And would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend Appendix A of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia to decrease the monthly service charge for the collection and disposal of trash and garbage as authorized by Section 16-64 of said code.
So we can consider this matter. Is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
We have a motion that's been made and duly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item F, which is another ordinance for us to consider. And would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance approving the FY 2020 through 2024 capital improvement program and appropriating $33,258,335, in the FY 2020 capital improvement fund, $38,500,000 in the FY 2020 public utilities capital improvement fund, and $100,000 in the FY 2020 Parking Authority Capital Improvement Fund.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt.
Move adoption. Second.
We have a motion before us that's been made and seconded to adopt this ordinance. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion passes.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item G, And would you read the caption of this ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance approving the fiscal year 2020 operating budget for the Portsmouth Public School System in the amount of $199,605,957 and appropriating the necessary funds to implement said budget for the fiscal year 2020.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been made and seconded. Any discussion? And we do have one registered speaker, and that speaker is Mark Godalgi Otrowski. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I'm very pleased that the school budget is being put forward in this particular form. You have improved upon it from the original proposal in the city manager's budget report. And I thank my fellow citizens who share with me the concern that the schools were not getting enough support financially from the locality in the original proposal. I'd also like to express my appreciation to Councilmember Battle, who last night, when an 11th hour proposal was put out for consensus consideration, outside of the view of most of the people who attend these meetings and outside of the view of the multitude of people who spoke on behalf of this present level of funding, Councilmember Battle vigorously defended what you see before you and provided cogent arguments about trust and collaboration that seem to have carried the day with a majority of those of you on the dais. So thank you, sir, for supporting the citizens and supporting the schools.
Thank you. Now, this motion is available for council to discuss, and Councilman Moody has asked for the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support this, but I'm going to do it with some concern that I think some of my colleagues on here have expressed a few weeks ago, and that's the need for an audit of the finance procedures, finance department. You know, we do appropriate a lot of money, over $55 million in this case, in the budget we're about to adopt. And I think we'd be remiss given some figures that just don't add up thus far. I don't think anybody's purposely done anything wrong, certainly not implying that. But I think it's incumbent on us who have fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of the city to make sure that the numbers do add up. You know, each year when teachers come before this council making a case for more money, we hear stories that teachers have to go out and buy supplies. They have to buy paper. They have to buy crayons. That shouldn't be. We've even heard stories about school bus drivers having to buy brooms to clean their buses. Could go on and on. So we need to exercise the authority of this council and at the appropriate time in the near future to have an audit. That's number one. The other thing is I do think that we need to look at merging the two finance departments. I think it could save some money and also help to build the trust and keep the budget cycle from being a tug of war each year. So I'll vote for it, but Those are my concerns.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries, which brings us to item H. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution approving the Community Planning and Development 5-Year Consolidated Plan for federal fiscal years 2019 to 2023 and the federal fiscal year 2019 city program year 2020 annual action plan of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, and authorizing the city manager to file documents required to obtain the city's community planning and development grant entitlements.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt.
Move for adoption.
We have a motion that's been made to adopt. It's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item I, another ordinance for us to consider. Would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance adopting the FY 2020 classification and pay plan for employees of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt.
Move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Which is to adopt. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Which brings us to item J, adoption of an ordinance to, and I'll let you read the caption, please.
Yes, sir. An ordinance to appropriate $452,033,481 for the operation of city government during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt?
Move for adoption.
We have a motion that's been made and seconded to adopt this ordinance. And we ready for our discussion, and we do have two speakers. And I'll call them in the order that they signed up. The first speaker is Mark Godolgi-Ostrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. So here we are at the final vote, which will put the fiscal year 2020 budget in place. And I want to say that the process is one that I consider flawed. The public comes to 2 public hearings to discuss those items that the city manager has presented at a meeting back in March. But there is a constant retooling of the budget proposal between the time the city manager presents and the time of this final vote. The citizens are not able to have timely input into those supplemental submissions from council members. They take the form of a request for consensus in that room, which has a limited seating capacity. And although those meetings are recorded, those recordings are not available in time for people who are attending this meeting to talk on the budget to have seen those recordings. And so many are not mindful of the additional items that have been placed in the hopper and are pending approval. Going forward, I would like to see a process whereby there is notice given to the public when council members have items of that nature so that they can be discussed here, and that the citizenry as a whole is mindful of the other demands that are not published in the documents that you hand out in the work sessions, but just come on a walk-in basis. It's not equitable. We need to know the totality of the budget. We have a comprehensive budget document that doesn't tell the backstory behind the large numbers that are appropriated in certain places. $452 million is a rather large number. And taking the time to pick those numbers apart is something that many citizens cannot do. They cannot devote the time to it. So it needs to be pretty much laid out. I want to express my thanks to the budget staff. At a recent work session, they
Are you
did
speaking
just
to
that.
the motion
Yes,
which is
sir.
before us, which is to adopt?
Yes, sir.
How does this help us?
It helps you in terms of the process by which you formulate that which you're adopting.
Not to argue, we're talking about the adoption of this motion. Please,
Yes, sir.
Please put your remarks to that.
That, other than the thanks to the people in the budget department for doing what I had asked for in regard to the capital expenditures, and particularly in regard to the water increase, I'm happy that they took it to heart and followed up in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Garland Alexander. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
I wish to withdraw my request.
Thank you, sir. Before us is a motion that's on the floor to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion on the ordinance? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries. Which brings us to new business, boards and commissions, and Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no boards and commission considerations to consider tonight.
We do have, to add what Councilman Moody said, we do have the complete count commission. If any citizen in the council chambers or who may see this video, if you desire to serve on this commission, please contact one of us up here. We'll make the appointments at the next council meeting, which is scheduled for May 28th.
Mayor, if I could add to that.
You may.
A lot of citizens have inquired about jobs actually being the ones to go to the communities to count our citizens. And you can find information on the jobs that are available, and there are many. If you go to the website 2020census.gov/jobs, you'll find a lot of information, and there will also be application that you can fill out as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. The Councilman Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's May, so there are a lot of activities going on in the city. Between now and the time we meet again, I'll call your attention to this coming weekend is the anniversary celebration, the 100th birthday of the historic Truxton neighborhood. There will be activities on Saturday, open to the public at Elliott and Deep Creek. There will be games for children and a parade from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the evening. On Sunday, there will be a gospel concert from 2 to 6 p.m. in the same field. Also, this coming weekend, on Saturday, May the 18th, from 2 to 6 p.m. in the 300 and 400 block of High Street downtown, we will have our second annual classic car cruise-in, where you'll be able to see some old cars on display. We hope you'll stay downtown and spend some money and go have something to eat and drink while you're here. Of course, every Saturday now until through December, we have the Old Town Farmers Market at High and Court Streets from 9 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The following weekend is Memorial Day weekend, which is always a big time in Portsmouth. It's a Mosier Festival weekend. The Mosier Festival will begin that Friday evening. It'll be right here in the Festival Park adjacent to the Atlantic Union Bank Pavilion. It's all free and open to the public. It begins on Friday afternoon, May 24th at 5:30, runs from noon to 11 on Saturday, and then again on Sunday from 2 to 6. One of the headline bands on Saturday night, Raw Jazz, will be playing at 7:15, and the Dazz Band at 9 p.m. And all of those activities are open to the public, lots of good food and beverage and all sorts of exciting things for kids as well. Also, on Memorial Day weekend, that Saturday morning, is the Elizabeth River Run, which is a fun run and walk event through Old Town. The proceeds from that event go to the Children's Museum Foundation. And then, of course, on Monday is Memorial Day. On Memorial Day, we, the City of Portsmouth, will host the 135th Annual Memorial Day Parade, which will kick off at 10 a.m. It's on High Street. It begins at Norcom High School and walks toward the river. The reviewing stand is at High and Court. Our Grand Marshal this year will come from the Coast Guard. You know, we're a Coast Guard city, so we always like to enjoy honoring the Coast Guard. As well, that weekend, on Memorial Day weekend, that same Saturday, while you're doing the Mosier Festival and the Cruise In and the Farmers Market, after 11:30 in the morning, if you want to go by Bayside Harley-Davidson on Frederick Boulevard, we will have the second annual Vet Fest. It is a wonderful group with lots of entertainment and booze for veterans. It's put on by Code 19 and N22 and many other organizations that provide support to our veterans. A lot of us were there last year. It's a really good event. They're even going to have Santa Claus at Vet Fest on that Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. So we'll save the other events for, and just in case anybody wants to know, the Sunset Thursdays won't begin until June. So we'll look forward to those activities then.
Thank you, ma'am. In addition, this is National Military Appreciation Month, and so if you see one of our service members in town, please give them your appreciation. Councilman Glover.
Yes, also, folks, I wanted to let everyone know on Friday night, the 17th, the historic Truxton Centennial Celebration will hold their banquet. And the banquet will be at the Edmund Center, and I believe the start time for that banquet will be at 6 p.m. So I look forward to seeing you if you have tickets, and we look forward to celebrating the historic Truxton Centennial event. The other thing I wanted to say real quick, being one of the freshman councilmen, I want to thank the budget team for being patient with me during this budget process, helping me to learn and understand how city government budgets work. They did a lot of work and were very patient, and I just wanted to thank you for your patience, and I look forward to our next budget opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, a citizen recently made me and Councilwoman Simmons aware of a situation. It's kind of unique. The citizen referred to it as a spite hedge. I've never heard that term. Basically, what that is it's a hedge that's grown along a property line, and it's the type of hedge that pretty much blocks out the view. I don't know what the Code of Virginia says about that. We're Dillon Rule State. We can't do anything unless the state allows it. But if there's consensus, I would like for our city attorney to come back and do some research on that and for us to, based on his research, discuss among ourselves, see if that's something that we feel we should address in our code.
Thank you. Any problems with that? Everybody good? Okay. Mr. City Attorney, any questions?
No, Mayor, we'll take care of that and report back to City Council.
Thank you. Well, one last thing. I want to thank my colleagues on council for keeping an open mind during the budget process, for all the rich questions. I thought we had a very robust and rich discussion about the budget. It's a process that takes time to work itself through, and I think we work well as a team. Thank you again to my colleagues. Which brings us to Councilman Moody.
Mayor, I think a lot of people were involved in bringing this budget to this point, and I would like to say, let's give them a round of applause.
Sure. Paul.
I'd like to apologize to the folk in the Truxton area. They are celebrating 100 years. Of course, all of them are my friends, and those of you who will be attending the celebration this weekend. I'm one of the honorees. I'm grateful. I'm thankful, but I won't be able to attend. But you have my funds, and you have those folks representing me, and may everything go well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Patton?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. As City Manager, I'd like to thank you, the members of City Council, who worked very diligently after the March 25th budget presentation. Each council person, over a period of April all the way through till this point in May, we hosted sessions with them. Some of the sessions went 2 hours or more. They provided questions that they had. We answered all the questions. It's your hard work and engagement that helps you, who represent all of the citizens, understand what staff has put forth in order to carry out your forward vision thinking and your 4 big things. We truly appreciate the hard work that you have done.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lucas Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. Didn't want to miss this opportunity to let you know that month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, also referred to as Mental Health Month. It's been observed in the United States since 1949, reaching millions of people in the United States through media events and screening. So I would like you to take this month to find out more about mental health and how it affects our communities, and thankful that we as a council got through this with our mental health intact through this budget season. So as a provider of persons suffering with mental health disorders, I would like for you to consider finding out more about mental health during the month of March. Thank you.
Thank you. That's so important. Councilman Battle.
Dr. Patton, I'd like to say that I've been involved in a lot of cities and a lot of projects within a city. I've seen quite a few different governments in our city, government personnel, that is. But what you have assembled, I haven't seen. You have one of the best staff I've ever seen assembled. And that's a tribute to you and your knowledge of what you're doing. And I'd like to compliment you and them, because you are elite. And we're going to be at the top of the game in this Tidewater area because of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well stated. Well stated. And I think you speak for all members of council. Thank you. Which brings us report on pending items. Dr. Patton?
Mayor, there are no pending items.
This concludes our regular agenda, and we now move to non-agended speakers.